Hey, church. Greetings again from the Moore household. I'm coming at you this evening with another episode of Home Habits. We're going to continue that conversation just for these Wednesday in-home services that we're doing. But before I get into the habit I want to talk to you about tonight, I just want to say that an update for our family. I'm doing very well. The family's doing well. If you were at church on Sunday and noticed that we weren't there or saw the update on Facebook, I'm currently self-quarantining just because I almost 2 weeks ago was in a meeting with some people who have since tested positive for COVID. And so just as a precautionary method from our church, we want to operate in wisdom and in love for you, to protect and care for people. And so as a part of our just wanting to be transparent and to love you well, I'm self-quarantining until my negative test result comes in, which I'm expecting any day now. So I'm fully expecting to be there Sunday morning, just ready to worship with y'all in person. But I've had so many people reach out, talk about how they're praying for us, caring for us, sending and showing love in all kinds of ways. And so I just want to thank you as a church. You really have loved me and my family well. And so I appreciate that. So that's the update for us. But I want to talk to you this evening about creating a habit of expectation and cultivating a habit of expectation in your home. And so this is something that me and Callie have been talking about a lot lately, especially over the past few weeks in talking about Jubilee. I don't know if you know much about Jubilee, how long you've been at our church, but if you know anything about it, you know that it is all about expectation and anticipation. It's about coming and praising God for what He's done over the past year and for setting up everything to come up on the altar in front of the Lord and saying, God, what do you want us to do? Look at the things that we're doing. Do you want us to continue it? Do you want us to pick up something new? And it's all about, God, what are you doing? Because we want to expect what God's doing and have hopeful anticipation and expectation about Him really moving powerfully in our church and in our community. And so that's what we do at Jubilee. So coming up to Jubilee, we start to think about, okay, well, how are we expecting God to move in our home, to move in our lives personally? And so I'm looking at habits of expectation. Whenever I think about expectation, I think back to whenever Callie was pregnant with our first child, or even whenever we were engaged. And, on those early stages of a relationship, maybe you've moved to a new town or started a new job, started a new career, started a new school. If you've ever been on the early end of a new venture, you know that there's a lot of expectation in that. There's like, okay, what could come of this? What is life going to be like when this new child gets here? What is life going to be like whenever I start making this amount of money? Or what is life going to be like whenever I get married to this person that I really, really love? And there's all kinds of expectation about what that could be like and even what God could do with it. But I don't know, maybe you've been in a relationship or in a job for months, years, decades, and it's possible for that feeling of expectation and anticipation to start to wane. Once you start to feel like you know what to expect, feel like you've seen it all before. I'm not going to say this is you and your spouse, but if you've been married for a long time and you start to think, well, this is how my wife is, or this is how my husband is, this is just who they are, and you already know what to expect. There's no new paths, there's no new ways of expectation for finding new futures and new responses from your spouse. You think that you know it all. That can kind of become a difficult and stifling kind of feeling. That can become a time where you could feel stagnant. And it's the same even in expecting what the Lord can do. Maybe you've been following the Lord for years and years and years, and you think, you know what, well, this is what God is like. This is what following Him looks like. This is what being a Christian is. And there's no room for expectation and imagination of how God could shake things up and how God could make things look and feel bright and new again. Well, I don't know if you know this, but our God is a God of creativity. Our God is a God of new things. The Word says that, behold, He makes all things new. If you're in Christ, you're a new creation because He's made all things new. And so to be the God of the new, He's not just it's not new in the sense of what our culture is like right now, of just the next new piece of technology that's going to satisfy you for just a few minutes until you need to buy the next thing. Our God is a God of new, that He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. He's never going to change, but still there's so much imagination within Him. And it's not a newness that keeps you always coming back begging, never having enough. It's a kind of newness that makes everything fresh and everything lively. Even the things that maybe could have felt old because you've been in it for a long time, but there's still freshness, there's still vitality and imagination and creativity in it. And so I want to create a culture of expectation of what God can do in my home, in our church, in all areas of my life. And so I was brought to a scripture about a king from the Bible named King Rehoboam. I like context a lot, so I'm just going to give you a little bit of it. You can look into this if you'd like. In Second Chronicles chapters 11 and 12, and in 1 Kings chapters 12 to 14, you can go look for yourselves about the story of King Rehoboam. Rehoboam was the son of King Solomon, so he's really close in the lineage of David, pretty early in like the story of Israel and Judah's kings. So how things went with Rehoboam is he actually had some issues even starting out. There's plenty of cool stories that you could look at to see. He did some foolish things early on, and he kind of had some messes to clean up even early on in his reign. He kind of had to get things secure there in the southern kingdom of Judah. So anyway, he had some issues that he needed to figure out. And in the process of that, he humbled himself. He listened to God's prophets. He listened to what the Lord was saying. And he actually ended up becoming pretty established, and things were starting to look pretty good for Rehoboam. But something happened that I want to highlight here from 2 Chronicles chapter 12. If you go to 2 Chronicles 12, even just verse 1, it says, "When the rule of Rehoboam was established and he was strong," whenever his rule was established and he was strong. So again, remember, think back to that early time whenever you expected and anticipated, what could God do with this new marriage that I'm entering into? What could God do with these kids that I want to pray over every night that He's blessing into my home? You have that expectation. Well, it says, once the rule of Rehoboam was established and he was strong, he abandoned the law of the Lord and all Israel with him. I think that story is kind of the story of some of us even nowadays. Once we get things launched, once we get things started off, that's whenever we start to abandon God's way of doing things. It's in the early phases where we know, oh man, I've got this whole career ahead of me. I need to set my career. I need to set this business up to serve the Lord. But then once things get established, once things get going, we kind of start to get into cycles of just doing things the way that we know how to do them on our strength. And we start to abandon what maybe the Lord is wanting out of it and what the Lord wants to do with it. And we stop expecting, we stop anticipating what God can do and wants to do. And this was a problem for Rehoboam. Once his reign was established and he was strong, he abandoned the law of the Lord and all Israel with him. So if we move on a little bit further, 2 Chronicles 12, now in verse 14, this is just kind of talking about the whole work of what Rehoboam did. It says, "And he did evil. And Rehoboam did evil, for he did not set his heart to seek the Lord." Rehoboam ended up doing evil because he did not set his heart to seek the Lord. This is what I want to encourage you in, what I want to encourage us as a church in, is that we would be people who don't do evil in the sight of the Lord, because we are going to set our hearts to seek the Lord. No matter if we've been doing something for years and years, if we've been a Christian all our lives, it feels like we're still, even in this moment, we're going to set our hearts to seek the Lord. Even in the middle of a pandemic, we're going to set our hearts to seek the Lord. I don't want us to ever feel like we know exactly what to expect and what's coming from God. I want us to expect with anticipation and with a mind and an eye towards newness of what He wants to do. So that's my prayer for you. So here, if you're in home, taking in this message, whoever you're with, whoever you're sitting with, maybe you could call somebody up and ask some questions, but I really want you to ask yourself, what have I grown stagnant in? What have I started to just feel like I know exactly what to expect? And how would God want to shake that up? And I want me and you to start cultivating this heart of expectation, that we would seek the Lord, that we would prepare our hearts to seek the Lord, because I don't want us to do evil in His sight. So just to be transparent and real with you, even as a pastor, here we are coming into Jubilee, and Jubilee looks a lot different this year. I know that I've said it's all about expectation and anticipation, but we're not all going to one location and all the campuses joining together. Some people might not even feel comfortable entering into a brick and mortar church building for this. And so I know that some people will be doing Jubilee online, and that's okay. But I just want to encourage you, if you're going to be coming to our church for Jubilee, if you're going to be taking it in behind a laptop or from a phone, whatever it is, I just encourage you, don't let this opportunity go by. Don't let it pass you by, to be an opportunity for you to prepare your heart to seek the Lord. Wherever you're at, whatever you're doing, whoever you're doing it with, let's use Jubilee as a time for us as individuals and us as a church to expect and anticipate what beautiful things God could be bringing out of this next season. There's a lot of despair going on around us. There's a lot of just hurt, difficulty, especially as regards COVID-19. Just our society is in a little bit of upheaval right now. But it's in the middle of that we as the people of God need to be expecting with hopeful anticipation and creativity and imagination, and in prayer seeking, God, what do you want to do in this time? What do you want to do with me? How do you want to shake things up? If business has to look different, if my work is changing up, if school has to look differently, I don't want to be discouraged by that, but I want to dream with God and have some expectation, create a culture of expectation within myself and in my home about what God can do. So that's my prayer for you, that we would be a hopeful and expectant people, because our God is a good and creative and powerful God, and He wants to use us to do some things on this earth. So you be blessed. I'll see you Sunday, and even if I don't see you in person, I pray that you would have hopeful anticipation and expectation about what good things God can do. And I pray that you would prepare your heart, set your heart to seek the Lord. Be blessed.